Chapter 1. A Cry for Help. Dr. Liam Carter was no stranger to danger. As a field medic for the Galactic Alliance, he had spent the last decade hopping from war zones to disaster sites, patching up wounds on soldiers, civilians, and alien species alike. He had treated plasma burns from skirmishes with rogue factions, stitched up wounds inflicted by predatory alien fauna, and fought against pathogens that would make Earth's most virulent diseases seem trivial. But this time, as he piloted his small medical shuttle toward the source of a faint distress signal, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his gut. The signal had been weak and garbled, picked up by sheer chance as Liam's shuttle passed through the remote rim sector. The moon where it originated wasn't even on most star charts a barren, lifeless rock orbiting a massive gas giant. The Galactic Alliance's jurisdiction barely stretched this far, and it was rare for anyone to be out here, let alone in need of medical assistance. Still, a distress signal was a distress signal, and Liam wasn't the kind of man to ignore a plea for help. The landing. The shuttle touched down with a soft hiss, its engines kicking up clouds of silvery dust that sparkled faintly under the moon's pale light. Liam stepped out, his boots crunching against the frozen ground. The air was cold and thin, the kind of atmosphere that would kill most species without the proper gear. Liam adjusted his breathing mask, his breath fogging up the visor as he scanned the area with his handheld medical scanner. The terrain was desolate craggy rocks and shallow craters stretching as far as the eye could see. The gas giant loomed large in the sky, its swirling bands of orange and red casting an eerie glow over the landscape. There was no sign of civilization, no structures or ships, just silence, and an occasional gust of wind that sent shivers down Liam's spine. His scanner beeped softly, picking up faint life signs ahead. He followed the signal, climbing over jagged rocks and navigating narrow crevices until he came to a small alcove sheltered by a natural arch of stone. That's where he found her. The stranger. She was slumped against the rocky wall, her breathing shallow and labored. Her appearance was striking. Her deep violet skin shimmered faintly under the gas giant's glow, and her silvery hair cascaded in wild tangles around her face. She was tall and slender, her features sharp and elegant, with golden eyes that flickered weakly as she struggled to remain conscious. Liam's gaze dropped to the jagged wound on her side. It was bad dark, viscous blood seeped through the torn fabric of her clothing, pooling on the ground beneath her. The edges of the wound were scorched, suggesting a plasma weapon had caused it. "You're injured," Liam said, kneeling beside her and setting down his medkit. "I'm a medic. Let me help." Her head turned slightly, and for a moment, their eyes met. There was defiance in her gaze, a fierce determination that belied her weakened state. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice melodic but edged with pain. "Well, neither should you," Liam replied, already pulling out a diagnostic tool. "But here we are." She flinched as he reached for her wound, her hand darting out to grab his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone in her condition. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice firm despite her obvious weakness. Liam held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Look, I don't know who you are or how you got here, but if I don't treat that wound, you're not going to last much longer. So, either let me help, or we both waste what little time you've got left arguing about it." For a moment, she seemed to consider his words. Then, with a reluctant nod, she released his wrist and slumped back against the rock. "Do what you must, human." The treatment. Liam worked quickly, his hands moving with practiced precision. He injected her with a universal pain suppressant, which he hoped would be compatible with her physiology, and began cleaning the wound. The diagnostic tool beeped as it scanned her vitals, displaying readings that Liam couldn't entirely decipher. Her biology was unlike anything he had encountered before, but the basics were clear enough. She was critically injured, her blood pressure dangerously low. "This is going to sting," Liam warned as he applied a regenerative gel to the wound. The gel bubbled and hissed as it bonded with her flesh, sealing the torn tissue and sterilizing the area. She winced but didn't cry out, her golden eyes fixed on him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "You're not Alliance," she said after a moment, her voice steadier now. "Why are you here?" "I could ask you the same thing," Liam replied, not looking up from his work. "This moon's not exactly a tourist destination." Her lips twitched into something that might have been a smile. Fair point. Liam finished bandaging her wound and sat back on his heels, studying her carefully. You'll need to rest, he said. That gel will accelerate the healing process, but your body's been through a lot. What happened to you? She hesitated, her gaze shifting away. That's complicated. Liam raised an eyebrow. Try me. A royal secret. I was betrayed, she said finally, her tone bitter, by someone I trusted. Liam waited, sensing there was more to the story. After a moment, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. My name is Kalara, she said. I was a member of the royal family of Thalaris. Liam frowned. Thalaris was a distant planet known for its wealth and political intrigue, ruled by a dynasty that rarely involved itself with the Galactic Alliance. Royalty, huh? That explains the attitude. Kalara shot him a sharp look, but didn't respond to the jab. My brother, King Zareth, is the ruler of Thalaris, but he is also a tyrant. I opposed his policies, spoke out against his cruelty. For that, I was branded a traitor. Liam's stomach tightened. And the wound? An assassination attempt, Kalara said bitterly. I barely escaped. My ship was damaged, and I crash-landed here. Liam exhaled, leaning back against the rock. Well, you've got quite the story. Kalara's golden eyes met his, her expression unreadable. And you've got quite the decision, human. Helping me makes you a target. My brother will not hesitate to kill anyone who stands in his way. Liam shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Wouldn't be the first time I've pissed off someone powerful. Kalara blinked, surprised by his response. Then, for the first time since he'd found her, she laughed a soft, melodic sound that seemed to lighten the oppressive atmosphere around them. The chapter's cliffhanger. As the two sat in the alcove, an alert on Liam's scanner drew his attention. The device beeped urgently, displaying an incoming signal that made his blood run cold. What is it? Kalara asked, her voice sharp. Trouble, Liam replied, showing her the screen. A small fleet of ships was entering the moon's orbit, their signatures unmistakably Thalarian. Looks like your brother's men found you. Kalara's expression hardened, the defiance returning to her gaze. Then we fight. Liam swallowed hard, gripping his medkit as he prepared for what was to come. Guess I'm in this now. The chapter ends with Liam and Kalara bracing for the arrival of the Thalarian fleet, their unlikely alliance about to be tested in the face of overwhelming odds. Chapter 2. The Price of Defiance. The silence of the barren moon was broken by the distant hum of approaching ships. Liam stood at the edge of the rocky alcove, his medical scanner clutched tightly in one hand. The faint blips on the screen confirmed his worst fear. A Thalarian fleet was descending, their formation methodical and precise. Behind him, Kalara struggled to her feet, her movements stiff but determined. Despite her injuries, a fierce resolve burned in her golden eyes. She adjusted the tattered remains of her cloak, her posture straightening as though she refused to let her wounds define her. They're coming for me, she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. You should leave, human. This isn't your fight. Liam turned to her, his jaw tightening. You think I'd patch you up just to abandon you now? Forget it. Besides, it's not like they're going to give me a free pass after helping you. Kalara regarded him for a moment, something unreadable flickering in her expression. You're either very brave or very foolish. I hear that a lot, Liam muttered, scanning their surroundings. Now, do you have any ideas on how we're supposed to fight off a fleet with nothing but a medkit and a bad attitude? Kalara managed a faint smirk. We won't fight them head-on. We'll outthink them. Liam raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. A desperate plan. Kalara limped to the edge of the alcove, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the first Thalarian dropships were beginning to descend. Their sleek, black hulls shimmered faintly in the dim light, their engines emitting a low, ominous hum. She took a deep breath, her hand resting lightly on the bandages that covered her side. There's a communications relay not far from here, she said. If we can reach it, I can override the Thalarian frequencies and send a distress signal to the Galactic Alliance. Liam frowned. You think the Alliance will come all the way out here for you? They might not come for me, Kalara admitted, but they'll come for the chance to confront my brother. Thalaris has been skirting the edge of the Alliance's jurisdiction for years. A direct conflict would force their hand. That's a big gamble, Liam said. Kalara's golden eyes met his. Do you have a better idea? Liam sighed, glancing at the scanner again. The dropships were getting closer. Fine, let's move. But if this goes south, I'm blaming you. Kalara smirked. Deal. The journey to the relay. The trek to the communications relay was grueling. The terrain was rough and uneven, the rocky outcroppings providing only minimal cover. Kalara moved slowly, her injuries sapping her strength despite Liam's earlier treatment. He offered her his arm for support, and though she hesitated at first, pride eventually gave way to practicality. Your species is stronger than you look, Kalara remarked as they climbed over a jagged ridge. Liam chuckled, though the exertion made his voice breathless. You're not the first alien to underestimate humans. We're tougher than we seem. Kalara's expression softened slightly. Perhaps. I've never met one like you before. The two fell into a companionable silence as they pressed on, the tension between them easing despite the looming danger. The relay station finally came into view after an hour of arduous travel. A squat, weathered structure built into the side of a cliff. Its antenna stretched high into the sky, the faint hum of its operational systems reassuringly audible. There it is, Kalara said, her voice laced with relief. We just need to dash. A sharp whine cut through the air, followed by the explosion of rock and dust as a plasma bolt struck the ground near them. Liam and Kalara dove for cover, their hearts pounding. They found us, Kalara muttered, her voice tense. Liam peered over the ridge, his stomach sinking as he spotted a squad of Thalarian soldiers advancing toward them. Clad in sleek black armor, they moved with unnerving precision, their weapons trained on the relay station. We're not going to make it, Liam said grimly. Not without a distraction. Kalara's eyes narrowed. Then we give them one. The first fight. Kalara grabbed a small device from the remnants of her cloak, a spherical object that pulsed faintly with blue light. She handed it to Liam, her expression serious. This is a proximity mine, she explained, planted on the ridge. When they pass, it will take out half their squad. Liam hesitated. And the other half? I'll handle them, Kalara said, her tone leaving no room for argument. You're injured, Liam protested. You can barely stand, let alone fight. Kalara smirked faintly. Don't underestimate me, human. Before Liam could respond, she darted away, moving with surprising speed despite her injuries. Cursing under his breath, Liam clambered up the ridge and planted the mine as instructed. The device emitted a soft hum, its blue light pulsing faster as it armed itself. The soldiers advanced cautiously, their weapons scanning the area. As they passed the ridge, the mine detonated with a deafening blast, sending shards of rock and metal flying. Half the squad was wiped out instantly, their armor no match for the explosive force. The remaining soldiers recovered quickly, their focus snapping to the source of the attack. But Kalara was already upon them. She moved like a shadow, her strikes precise and deadly. Liam watched in awe as she dispatched the soldiers with a mixture of hand-to-hand combat and improvised weaponry, her movements a blur of violet and silver. By the time the last soldier fell, Kalara was breathing heavily, her hand pressed against her side. Liam rushed to her, his medkit at the ready. You're insane, he said, helping her to her feet. But that was incredible. Kalara managed a faint smile. I told you, don't underestimate me. The signal. The relay station's interior was cramped but functional, its control panels blinking faintly in the dim light. Kalara moved to the console, her fingers flying over the keys as she accessed the Thalarian frequencies. Can you do it? Liam asked, standing guard near the entrance. Yes, Kalara replied, her voice steady despite her obvious exhaustion. But I'll need a few minutes. Liam's scanner beeped again, the display showing more dropships descending toward their location. His heart sank. We don't have a few minutes. Kalara glanced at him, her golden eyes fierce. Then hold them off. Liam sighed, gripping a makeshift weapon he had scavenged from one of the fallen soldiers. I'm really starting to regret this. The next wave of soldiers arrived moments later, their weapons firing as they stormed the relay station. Liam fought desperately, using every ounce of his strength and ingenuity to keep them at bay. Despite his lack of combat training, he managed to hold his own, buying Kalara the time she needed. "I've got it," Kalara shouted, her voice triumphant. "The signal is sent." Liam's relief was short-lived as a massive explosion rocked the station, sending him sprawling to the ground. He looked up to see a towering figure emerging from the smoke, a Thalarian commander, his black armor gleaming ominously. "Kalara," the commander growled, his voice cold and menacing. "You cannot escape." Kalara stepped forward, her chin held high despite her injuries. "We'll see about that." The chapter's cliffhanger. The chapter ends with Liam and Kalara facing the Thalarian commander, the odds stacked against them as the relay station burns around them. But in the distance, faint lights appear in the skyships responding to the distress signal, bringing a glimmer of hope. Chapter 3. The Commander's Ultimatum. The Thalarian commander loomed in the doorway, his imposing frame silhouetted against the smoldering debris outside. His black armor gleamed ominously in the faint light, intricate runes etched across its surface glowing faintly with each movement. He was larger than the other soldiers, his presence radiating authority and menace. "Kalara," he growled, his voice deep and resonant, carrying a calm cruelty that sent chills down Liam's spine. "You've caused enough trouble. Surrender now, and I might show mercy." Kalara stood tall, though Liam could see the strain in her posture. Her injuries and exhaustion were taking their toll, but her golden eyes burned with defiance. "Mercy?" she spat. "Since when has Zaratha's regime ever shown mercy?" The commander took a step forward, his heavy boots crunching against the broken floor. "Your defiance will cost you dearly. And this human," he said, his visor tilting toward Liam, "will suffer for his involvement." Liam gripped his makeshift weapon tighter, his pulse quickening. "I've been through worse," he said, trying to mask his fear with bravado. "And for the record, your people aren't as scary as you think." The commander chuckled darkly. "Brave words. Let's see how long your courage lasts." The standoff. The air in the relay station was electric with tension, the faint hum of the machinery underscored by the distant sound of approaching Thalarian reinforcements. Liam's mind raced, searching for a plan. He was outmatched and outgunned, but giving up wasn't an option. Kalara spoke, her voice calm but sharp. "This isn't over. Reinforcements are on their way, ships from the Galactic Alliance. You won't get away with this." The commander's laughter was low and cold. "The Alliance won't arrive in time. By the time they get here, you'll already be in my custody. Or dead." Kalara stepped forward, her movements slow but deliberate. "If you want me, come and get me." Before the commander could respond, she thrust her hands forward, releasing a pulse of kinetic energy that shook the entire room. The force slammed into him, sending him stumbling backward into the wreckage outside. Liam stared, wide-eyed, as Kalara staggered and nearly collapsed. "Go!" she shouted, her voice hoarse. "I'll hold him off." "Not a chance." Liam shot back, rushing to her side. He supported her with one arm, his other hand gripping his weapon. "We do this together." The commander recovered quickly, stepping back into the station. His armor glowed brighter, and a wicked, serrated blade extended from his gauntlet. "Foolish," he said, his voice laced with contempt. "You'll regret that." A fight for survival. The battle was brutal and chaotic. The commander moved with unnerving speed for someone of his size, his blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. Liam and Kalara fought desperately, their movements fueled by adrenaline and sheer determination. Liam used every trick he could think of, hurling debris and using the confined space of the station to his advantage. But it was Kalara who was the real threat. Despite her injuries, she fought with a ferocity that was almost otherworldly. Her hands glowed with bursts of energy, each strike forcing the commander to reevaluate his approach. But the commander was relentless. He deflected Kalara's attacks with ease, his blade carving through the walls and floor as he pressed forward. Liam barely managed to avoid a fatal strike, the blade grazing his arm and sending a searing pain shooting through his body. "Liam!" Kalara shouted, her voice filled with alarm. "I'm fine," Liam lied, clutching his wounded arm. "Just keep him busy." Kalara unleashed another wave of energy, this one more focused and powerful. It struck the commander square in the chest, forcing him to his knees. She didn't wait for him to recover. charging forward and slamming into him with everything she had. The impact sent both of them crashing through the wall and into the open air. Liam ran to the edge of the hole, his heart pounding as he saw Kalara and the commander locked in a fierce struggle on the rocky terrain below. The turning point. Kalara's strength was fading, and it was clear she couldn't keep this up much longer. The commander, sensing her weakness, struck with renewed ferocity. His blade slashed across her side, reopening her wound and sending her sprawling to the ground. "No!" Liam shouted, leaping down to join her. He placed himself between Kalara and the commander, his weapon raised. "You'll have to go through me first." The commander tilted his head, almost amused. A human willing to die for her? How quaint. Liam's mind raced. He knew he couldn't win in a straight fight. But then he remembered the proximity mine Kalara had given him earlier. He still had one left. Keeping his movements subtle, he reached into his pocket and activated the mine. "You talk too much," he said, throwing the device directly at the commander's feet. The explosion was deafening, a blinding flash of light and heat that sent the commander flying backward. When the dust settled, his armor was scorched and sparking, his movements sluggish as he struggled to rise. Kalara coughed weakly, her voice barely audible. "You idiot. That was reckless." "Worked, didn't it?" Liam replied, helping her to her feet. "Now let's finish this." A timely arrival. Before the commander could recover, the sound of approaching ships filled the air. Liam and Kalara looked up to see a fleet of Galactic Alliance vessels descending through the atmosphere. Their sleek, silver hulls gleamed in the light, and their weapons were already locked on the remaining Thalarian forces. The commander snarled, his golden eyes blazing with fury. "This isn't over," he growled, retreating as his remaining troops scrambled to regroup. Kalara leaned heavily on Liam, her strength almost completely spent. "We did it," she said softly, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Yeah," Liam replied, his own smile tinged with exhaustion. "We did." The aftermath. The Galactic Alliance troops secured the area, taking the remaining Thalarian soldiers into custody. Medics arrived to tend to Kalara and Liam, though the latter insisted they prioritize her care. As Kalara was loaded onto a medical transport, she reached for Liam's hand. "Thank you," she said, her golden eyes filled with gratitude. "For everything." Liam squeezed her hand gently. "Anytime." Before she was taken away, one of the Alliance officers approached Liam. "You've done a great service here," the officer said. "We'll make sure the council hears about this." Liam nodded, watching as the transport lifted off and disappeared into the sky. He stood alone on the rocky terrain, the weight of what had just happened settling over him. Epilogue. An unexpected reward. Weeks later, back at the Galactic Alliance headquarters, Liam was called into a meeting with a group of high-ranking officials. To his surprise, Kalara was there, her injuries fully healed. She looked radiant, her golden eyes shining with warmth as she smiled at him. "I requested this meeting," she said, stepping forward, "to thank you properly." Liam raised an eyebrow. "I thought we already did that." Kalara shook her head. "Not like this." She gestured to one of the officials, who handed Liam a small device. "This is a transport pass," Kalara explained. "It grants you unrestricted access to Thalaris. You're welcome in our system anytime." Liam stared at the device, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and disbelief. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," Kalara said softly. "You saved my life, Liam. And more than that, you gave me hope." The story ends with Liam and Kalara exchanging a meaningful glance, the beginning of a bond that would transcend the boundaries of their worlds. Epilogue. A new beginning. Liam stood in the grand hall of the Galactic Alliance headquarters, the small transport pass clutched tightly in his hand. The sleek, silver device hummed faintly with latent energy, its glow a constant reminder of the journey that had brought him here. He couldn't help but feel out of place amidst the polished floors, towering columns, and the sharp uniforms of the officials bustling around him. But then his eyes found Kalara, and the feeling of unease faded. She stood at the far end of the hall, her posture regal yet relaxed. Gone were the tattered clothes and signs of injury. In their place was a shimmering violet gown that seemed to flow like liquid light. Her silver hair cascaded in soft waves, and her golden eyes sparkled as they met his. Liam approached, still feeling like an ordinary man walking into an extraordinary world. "So, what happens now?" he asked, his voice breaking the silence. Kalara smiled, her expression warm but tinged with a hint of mischief. "That depends on you, human. You've earned a place of honor among my people. If you wish, I could arrange for you to join the diplomatic envoy to Thalaris." "Diplomatic envoy?" Liam asked, raising an eyebrow. "I'm a medic, not a politician." Kalara chuckled softly. "We both know you're more than just a medic. You've already done what most diplomats could never achieve, earned the trust of a Thalarian royal." Liam shook his head, though a small smile tugged at his lips. "I'm not sure I'd survive in your world. Too many sharp suits and formal dinners." Kalara tilted her head, her golden eyes studying him. "Then what would you do, Liam? You've proven you're capable of so much more than patching up wounds." "A proposal." Liam hesitated, his gaze dropping to the transport pass in his hand. The truth was, he hadn't thought much about the future. His entire career had been defined by jumping from one crisis to the next, never staying in one place long enough to build anything meaningful. But now, standing here with Kalara, the idea of stability didn't seem so bad. "I don't know," he admitted finally, "but I'm not ready to say goodbye to all this. To you." Kalara's expression softened, and for a moment, the confidence she usually exuded gave way to something more vulnerable. "Then don't," she said quietly. "Come to Thalaris. You don't have to decide your future right away. Just stay." Liam blinked, surprised by the invitation. "You're serious?" "Of course," Kalara replied, her voice firm. "You saved my life, Liam. And more than that, you've shown me there's still hope for alliances between our people. I could use someone like you by my side." Liam considered her words, the weight of the decision settling over him. It wasn't just about leaving behind his old life, it was about stepping into a new one, filled with unknowns and challenges. But as he looked at Kalara, he realized that the prospect didn't scare him as much as it once would have. "All right," he said finally, slipping the transport pass into his pocket. "Let's see what Thalaris has to offer." Arrival on Thalaris. The journey to Thalaris was unlike anything Liam had experienced. The ship Kalara arranged for him was sleek and luxurious, its interior filled with the same glowing runes he had seen on her people's armor. The journey through hyperspace was smooth, the view from the observation deck a mesmerizing display of shifting colors and distant stars. When they finally arrived, Liam's breath caught in his throat. Thalaris was a planet of breathtaking beauty, its surface covered in vast, shimmering cities that seemed to blend seamlessly with lush, untouched wilderness. Floating spires rose into the sky, their surfaces glittering with the same iridescent glow that adorned Kalara's skin. Kalara met him as he disembarked, her smile radiant. "Welcome to Thalaris," she said. "I hope it lives up to your expectations." Liam nodded, still taking in the view. "It's incredible." Kalara gestured for him to follow, leading him through the city's winding streets. The air was filled with the hum of advanced technology, but it wasn't harsh or intrusive. Instead, it blended harmoniously with the natural sounds of the planet-chirping birds, rustling leaves, the distant rush of water. As they walked, Kalara explained more about her world. She spoke of the struggles her people had faced under her brother's rule, the resistance movements that had formed in secret, and the hope that her return would inspire. "You're a symbol to them," Liam said, glancing at her. "Do you feel ready for that?" Kalara hesitated, her expression thoughtful. "I don't know," she admitted. "But with you here, I feel like I can face whatever comes next." The unexpected reward. Over the weeks that followed, Liam found himself adjusting to life on Thalaris. He worked alongside Kalara and her allies, using his medical expertise to aid the resistance and his growing understanding of Thalarian culture to bridge the gap between their people and the Galactic Alliance. Kalara's leadership inspired loyalty and hope, and Liam saw firsthand how much her people needed her. But it wasn't just her people who needed her, it was him. Somewhere along the way, Liam realized that his feelings for Kalara had deepened into something more than admiration. One evening, as they stood together on a balcony overlooking the city, Kalara turned to him, her golden eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "You've given me more than I could have ever asked for," she said. "Your courage, your kindness. It's changed everything. Liam smiled, his heart racing. I could say the same about you. Kalara stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Then perhaps it's time I gave you something in return. Before Liam could respond, she leaned in, her lips brushing softly against his. The kiss was brief but filled with emotion, a promise of what lay ahead. As they pulled apart, Kalara smiled. That, she said, is only the beginning. Liam laughed softly, the weight of the past weeks lifting from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt like he had found a place where he truly belonged. The story ends with Liam and Kalara standing together on the balcony, their future uncertain but filled with hope.